Hi, everybody. Welcome to CC in the City, another episode. And today we were going to be talking about health, fitness, and wellness. And my special guest is Candice Camille. Hi, Candice. How are you?
Hi, Camilla. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you so much for coming on our show. Now, you describe yourself as a wellologist. Explain to us what that is.
Oh, wellologist, something I made up, but it's actually the #1 question that's asked on the Candice Camille website. Basically, you put it together, you got well. We know what well means, it's being well. An ologist is like the study of, or you teach somebody to be well. Instead of just a health coach, I didn't want to be known as that simply because it's so much to being well than just working out and just eating right. There's a whole pie that I call it of all the pillars that you have to cross to be well. It's your physical limb, your mental limb, your spiritual limb, your financial limb, your purpose and passion. I think that we need to work in those simultaneously, daily, in order to be well. And that's one of the things that I teach you how to do, just going across all the wellness pillars, not just the two.
Now, explain your background. You were a respiratory therapist.
Oh, for now, about 28 years. Again, taking care of patients that had respiratory problems, that couldn't breathe, for smokers, emphysemic patients, chronic lungers, which is COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. For the patients that you see on the breathing machines or tubes down their mouth, that's what I did,
Now, you decided to open up a spa, which we're in. Explain to me why you decided to do that.
Well, back then I was doing it as a patient, but about 20 years ago I was diagnosed with throat cancer, tracheal cancer. So, and it wasn't looking so good back then. So they actually, told me that certain things that I would have to do for surgery to actually remove the cancer. But the odds were that I was going to wind up to be one of my patients, that I would have a trach, I most likely would be on a ventilator, so my life drastically would change. Had young children back then, so I said, no, I don't want the surgery. So I opted out of the surgery. Actually, I opted to die, because that's pretty much what they said. And, at the time I was married, so my husband, of course, wanted to go for the surgery. And I said, absolutely not. And he was like, no. Did you hear what the doctor said? And I heard him just fine. But I did not want to become one of my patients, nor did I want my children at the time to have to live that life. So we went home to prepare for death.
Are you serious?
I'm serious.
So what changed?
I changed my mind. Women have a reason, we can change our mind. But all jokes aside, I went home preparing for death. But then I wanted to know, as I got sicker and sicker, because it did get really, really bad before it got worse. So I did go through the chemo, the radiation, and some of that stuff. But I learned the power of really taking care of the body through movement and food. So back then, of course, I couldn't move, but I learned everything there was about the medicine that I took, all the derivatives, what it was made of, what kind of food I had to eat. So I probably read about 1.5 million books on what heals the body in terms of food. And I went to work that way slowly. Back then we had, I think it was called Isocal, or something that you had to drink when you were going through the chemo and all that, so the food didn't stay down. But I knew for sure, just from my background, athletics and school and stuff, that the only way to make the body strong was through nutrition and movement. And if I wanted to live, that's what I had to do.
Well, I'm glad you decided to live.
Yes.
Now, you have this health and fitness, and you've been through a personal experience with this. What do you say to people right now who are watching this who say, I don't have the will to live. I don't want to live. I'm just tired. I want to quit. I want to give up. I just want to go.
Then I would say, really? Because if that's the case, then just go. I really would. Simply because if you've made that decision, because at the end of the day, you got to fight like hell for your life. And you have to want to do it. So was it easy? Absolutely not. It was hard, but then you have to find your reason why. Back then, we hear a lot about why. Why are you doing it? What's your big why? Back then, it really was for my children. They were younger, and even then I was angry with God because of the life that I lived. So just to give you the backdrop of it, going through child abuse, I was homeless, You know, so I dealt with domestic violence, and God who? There was no God, because what did I do? So angry with them, but then when I understood that God wasn't outside of me, he was in me, that it was a feeling and it was this energy, that it was this spirit that I summed up to talk to and start to believe, that's what changed my mind in a sense of how I start to live in a harmonizing way. You know, I got to know God, you know, and I prayed on it. So, you know, I call him Big Daddy. I'm his chick.
Big Daddy. Now, you went and you studied health. You studied about foods and medication. And so what did you learn and what did you find out?
I learned that food is drugs. That when we talk about healing the body, that you can do it with food. You know, because even medications are made with probably some of the stuff that we throw away. So about food, it's amazing, the foods that we eat. And when you can understand what it actually do for your internal organs, because that's where I live from. I live from healing my organs, from my heart to my kidneys to my spleen to my lung to my pancreas. So I understand what foods that is. You know, back then we had to go to the library. You know, we had to go through the Dewey Decimal System. Now all you got to do is push a button and get Google, and you can find out information on anything that you like. But understanding what's your issue, what's your problem, and what do you have to do? There's food out there if you're willing to take the time, because that's what it is. Take the time and get the information, and the biggest thing is, are you willing to work at it? Are you willing to do this thing?
Where do you get the time?
Oh, it's part of my life. I make the time, and that goes back to priority. Is it a priority for you? Are you a priority for you? You know, we give so much time to our jobs, our children, our husbands, what we're doing, our careers, but are you really giving yourself your time? So it's important to you. Are you important to you? Because at the end of the day, when we get 50, 60, 70 years old, you're going to wish you did this stuff. Because you're talking about just life stuff. I can't get up off the toilet. I can't get up. You know, I can't move. Everything hurt. You're going to want to make sure that back when you 30, 40 years old. I didn't start this journey till I was about 38, 39. You know, right now, I have a daughter that's 40 and a son that's 36. Yeah, I had him when I was 2, but no worries. My disclaimer.
There you go.
But at the end of the day, being this age now and a legal senior citizens, right now, I still can do anything I want in terms of movement, feeling good. I run marathons. I teach running classes. I'm a coach, you know, simply because I decided that I wanted to be well. And that's what you have to do.
Now, what is the second thing you did once you decided to live? And no, you did the research, so that's second. What's the third thing you decided to do?
Move. I decided to move. You have to remember, back then I was bedridden, so there was no movement. You know, my husband did everything, cleaned me up, you know, everything, you know. So I wanted to move. So one of my biggest quotes is Martin Luther King: if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. And I did all of that. I started crawling, and then I'm running.